Thanks very much. Comrades and friends, in this short introduction we wanted to draw your attention to two recent interconnected developments which we think have serious implications for Iranian workers and their families, and therefore for all the Iranian people. The first is the attempts by the United States to extend sanctions on Iran from their own sanctions, which have been in place since 1980, to now include European countries imposing sanctions. The second development is the recent jailing of the leaders of Tehran's bus workers syndicate to severe jail sentences of, 5.5 years and 3 years. And these sentences have now been extended to some of the leaders of the sugarcane workers' union. They're jailings on the grounds of national security. Now then, American sanctions have been in place on Iran since 1980. Many Iranians have kind of got used to them. The Iranian government hasn't. Just in the last week, it's been revealed that, in fact, the Iranians were, several years ago, in direct negotiations with the Americans, where the Iranian government requested that if the Americans dropped their sanctions on Iran, the Iranians would be prepared to cease their financial and political support for Hezbollah and other groups in the Islamic Jihad and other groups in the Middle East. The Americans declined their offer and obviously are attempting to extend sanctions to include European banks especially, and also European multinational firms such as the French car firms Renault and Peugeot, which have large investments in Iran. As the previous speaker said, this campaign, in my view, should oppose sanctions, full stop. Sanctions are not an alternative to warfare, which is what some liberal politicians say on TV. They are part and parcel of warfare. They are a prelude to military action. The Americans will use sanctions in Iran exactly the same way they use them in Iran, to weaken the government. And remember, these sanctions will especially affect not the rich, not those in power, but ordinary people whose jobs and livelihoods may depend on multinational firms such as Renault and Peugeot. The workers at these firms say that, and many workers around the world say the same, they don't like their work, but they need their jobs. And so these American sanctions directly threaten their jobs and their livelihoods. At the same time, however, the Iranian government is clearly using the threat of conflict with the United States, is using the threat of economic sanctions to clamp down inside Iran. Hence these heavy jail sentences. Sometimes it's claimed that political Islam is part of an anti-globalization movement against neoliberalism. However, in Iran at least, the Iranian government is part and parcel of the international movement of neoliberalism. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund published a report on Iran where it praised Iran for one of the countries most successfully introducing neoliberal policies. What are these policies? Well, there are several. Firstly, privatization. All the industries which were nationalized after the 1979 revolution are already in the process of being privatized, with the exception of oil. Secondly, however, especially from the workers' point of view, it implies the casualization of jobs. Workers are increasingly being put on casual, short-term contracts in the car industry, even in the oil industry now. The Iranian Minister of Labour brags about it. He says in a few years the entire Iranian workforce will be on short-term contracts with obvious effects for their pay and their condition. In the face of these developments, Iranian workers in the car industry, in the sugar industry and elsewhere have been trying to unite. They're continually frustrated, however, by the fact that Iran does not allow free trade unions. The only syndicates that it allows are the Islamic associations, which, of course, it controls. In this situation, therefore, a campaign such as Hopi must demand an end to sanctions, as well as an end to threats of military intervention. At the same time, as is reflected in our slogans, we must support the struggles of the Iranian workers and the Iranian people against the neoliberal policies which the Iranian regime is trying to oppose. Thank you very much.